go to bed with. Gender is who you want to go to bed as. I hope that explains it a little bit. Your sex, your sexual body, is a completely different thing than gender. Sex is what's between my legs. Gender is what's between my ears. I also want to say something else I wasn't planning on saying, but this is the first time I've spoken with my 3 wonderful children present. And I want to just introduce you to the 3 most resilient children in the entire universe: my son Sean, my daughter Sophie, and my little boy Liam. I say that because in the last 4 years, they've gone from having a dad who pretended he was a man to coming out as a woman, their parents separating, their mom getting sick, their mom passing away last year, and now they have me as their single parent, a dad who does the job of mom, but they do call me dad, and I'm very honored as Father's Day approaches to be their dad. So thank you very much for giving them applause. So if you haven't heard of me before, I often have to say this expression: yes, I am that Dawn Ennis. I've lived in Connecticut 13 years, traveled around the country a little bit. As Katie mentioned, I became the first journalist to come out as trans in a network TV newsroom. It made headlines, and I learned the hard way what it's like to be targeted by the news media. Talk show hosts and shock jocks made me the butt of their jokes. Reporters hid in my bushes. They ambushed my wife and my oldest child. They visited the homes of my mother, my mother-in-law, and my sister. One went up and down the block knocking on doors asking if they had heard about the tranny next door. Despite this, life was pretty good when I came out. I was accepted by my job, by my children, and I had reached that rare thing that married people of transgender experience seldom reach. We found peace. We moved on. We became co-parents instead of husband and wife. It was a friendly coexistence, and I'm very grateful to their mom for finally convincing me that this is who I am. But just a few months after I came out, something happened that cost me everything. My successful transition, my good name, and a lot of support. I learned what it's like to have your name dragged through the mud all over again. I detransitioned as a result of a mental health issue that was caused by a seizure. The doctors correctly diagnosed it eventually as dissociative amnesia, meaning I had something that made me not want to be who I was, and I couldn't deal with it, so my brain basically clicked off like a circuit breaker. And I could not believe that I was trans. I was calling it a delusion. And you know what was funny was I spent weeks in a fantasy world where I could play the cisgender heterosexual husband that my wife and my relatives wanted me to be. For those who don't know the word cisgender, it's derived from Latin, meaning someone not transgender. So most of the folks here are cisgender. It's the opposite of transgender. But with the help of professional health counseling and a sudden revelation that took me a few weeks, I suddenly realized who I truly was and what an enormous setback I had unwittingly caused myself as those who were lumped in by my enemies. They used me as an example that you could deny this. You can undo trans. You can cure it. Just have a seizure. Now, obviously, you can deny you're trans, but my belief is that anyone who does that is really lying to themselves and to the world. I believe we as a population, I don't really use the word community, I think of us more as a population because you take 3 transgender people and you have 4 opinions. We need to be a little kinder to those people who go back, who decide or through medical means can't go on being trans because you face ostracization, you face abandonment, people lose their jobs, people lose their homes. There are no laws in other states to protect people like me, and you'd be surprised at how many people are like you, how many young people there are. Diana and I have been around the block a couple times, but my daughter has friends who are trans at her high school, and even if you don't think you have trans friends at your high school, I bet you do. You just don't know about it. You'd be surprised at how many times you'll encounter someone who might be trans that you just don't know, or maybe they haven't come out yet. Now, right now I work 6 jobs. I had a full-time job that I left when I became a widow. And I do that to stay at home with my kids and be there for them. And I'm a writer and I'm a blogger, and as Katie mentioned, I have a TV show that our state senator is going to grace next week on YouTube, and it's called Rise Up. And the idea behind the show is, ever since a certain person got elected president, he shall not be named, a lot of people have gotten angry. And even if you supported him or voted for him, there are people who are just so angry they don't know what to do about where we are right now. My show is designed to give you some avenues of what you can do. You can volunteer. You could run for office. You could help someone else run for office. You could make a difference. Sitting at home and yelling at the TV or being upset at the internet or throwing your phone down is not a solution. That's what my show is all about. Our fight, Diana's, mine, everybody who's trans, is to demand that we be treated equally as Americans. Our fight is more than just the right to use the appropriate bathroom, although I admit that's the focus of most of the news coverage. And as hard as I've had it, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the transgender men and the trans people of color, especially trans women of color. Trans men. Okay, so imagine you're supposed to live as a woman, but you know deep down inside that you're really a male. And you're already experiencing a second-class existence as a woman. And then when you come out, you're given even worse treatment because most of the focus in our society is on trans women. It's gotta be a hard road. For trans people of color, there's discrimination, there's violence, there's murder. We've had 12 trans people murdered so far this year, and it's only June. Last year there were 23 people who were murdered because of who they were. And one reason that the media, both the news and the entertainment media, either overlook us or don't understand us is because we're not in their newsrooms or in their theaters or on their sound stages. There's 1.4 million trans people who are out in America. But I would hazard to guess there's maybe a few dozen out trans people in the media. The thing that causes so much violence is poverty. Some trans people turn to the only thing they have left when there's nothing else: their bodies. They sell their bodies, and then if they meet with violence, they are victimized all over again by the news media, who rely on a biased local law enforcement authority that insists the only identity that matters, not your name, is what's printed on a card that the government gave you. We need more advocates, all of you, to work with police departments and local authorities to have them recognize, like they do here in Connecticut, that our needs are not just for the living, but for those who've lost their lives. I think that the reason that this goes on is the perception of deceit. Be who you are, but if you're perceived to be dressing up, your life could be at risk. You know, lawyers tried to use a legal defense called the trans panic defense, as if murder and violence is justified, given the shock of finding out that the girl you're with was assigned male at birth. Now, it was wrong for men to get away with rape based on how their dates dressed or what they said or did. And if it's wrong that way, it's wrong for them to be blaming their victims for being transgender. The real danger, though, for all of the people here assembled is not just from criminals. I want you to understand the most basic rule, no matter what, if you're trans or cisgender. The media is not your friend. Some grammar teachers might say the media are not your friend, but I use the collective now. Are there friendly reporters? Sure. Will you be thrilled to meet that nice guy or girl on TV who is coming to talk to you? Oh my goodness. Yes, it'll be nice. But even though they're probably just as nice when the cameras aren't rolling, they're not your friends. They have other stories to tell, and their mission is to get this one done so they can go do another one and then get to their next assignment, or dinner, or home to their families. Reporters are not interviewing you to be altruistic. It's not a priesthood. And if it's a scandal or a controversy like it happened in my life, I'll bet your pumps that the way they tell your story isn't necessarily the way you want it told. After I figured out that I really was trans, I went back to work, and I got fired. 30 years of being an award-winning journalist, as a person everyone thought was a man, and 1 year as a woman, and I'm a screw-up. The newspapers said she got a pink slip to go with her pink slip. What can you do so the news media doesn't use you? Find an advocate. Who's working in public relations at your local LGBT youth center? Start with someone who's already on our side. Find out if there's an LGBTQ journalist in your area. Google them. See what the events they're going to. Meet them. Social media connect with them. Just remember, the media is not your friend. But don't presume the media is your enemy either. I know that most people have a negative image of the media, and it's not altogether undeserved. But like us, the media are Americans, with families and friends and biases and perspectives. My advice remains, talk to your friends and maybe a lawyer before you talk to the media. If you're thinking of writing something, be smart. Find someone else to help you. If it doesn't sell, self-publish. I've known some friends who do that. But even there, watch your back. Your reputation, your story, even your face can be at risk of being stolen or told in a way that does not represent your view. Locking down your social media is a really important thing, as we discovered when I came out and suddenly their mom's picture was all over the internet. Thank God, at least they left my kids alone. Your mission here, whether you decide to accept it, is to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your story. It is important that we tell our stories. Let's overwhelm the enemies of LGBT people, and specifically trans people, with uplifting stories that really tell what happened to more than 1 million successfully transitioned, happily secure, and sane trans women and men. And non-binary folks too. Not everything is male and female. Let's dispel the predator myth, which has never been proven in the United States. Not one person has ever been convicted of using a law that allows people like me to use the appropriate bathroom for being a predator. There are laws already on the books for predators. We don't need new laws like in Texas, where they're going to basically try to introduce laws to make it illegal for someone to go to the bathroom if they don't have a birth certificate that matches their identity. They want to keep transgender students out of the appropriate bathrooms in their schools. We can choose to lose at their game, our enemies, or we can win at ours. So here's how. When marriage equality came to pass, the conversation shifted from sex to love. Love wins was the hashtag. And a lot of people started to see, gee, it's not all about sex, it's really about who you love. What the trans community needs, I think, is something similar to that about identity, because identity is everything when you're trans. So, I've got an idea. I've created a hashtag, ID me, M-E, ID me. I determine my expression. I determine my existence. I determine my everything. ID me. I hope you'll use it. I hope you share it. And I thank you so much for listening. Thank you, everyone.